Hey, Mike Brookfield here. A day early this week, but got to keep things rolling. What did I thought this week we'd look at Forever Man. We've looked at Forever Man before. I put up the solo from the record, Behind the Sun. I think it's on that one, isn't it? And then I've looked at the solo he does when he does that thing with Steve Winwood. And so we'll go through the solo he plays at the Hartford Civic Centre, 1985. Do you remember that? I had that on video cassette tape. I taped that off the telly box. That and the 86 one with Phil Collins. I had those two on video. I probably really learned to play guitar watching those two videos. And a couple of other things. That Steve Ray Vaughan interview where he plays a bit of Superstition and Rude Mood and Hideaway. They're the three main things I think I learned to play guitar with, So if you've never watched one of these videos before, if you go to Patreon, you can download a free tab. I'm doing a Clapton gig in the Grand Social on Sunday, the 6th of April, 2025, if you're watching this in the future. I'm looking forward to that. Forever Man will be on the set list probably. So I thought I'd transcribe one of the solos he does. At the Hartford Civic Centre, he plays a solo in the middle, and it's short and punchy just like the record. There is a solo later on that, oh my God, his name's slipped from my brain. The second guitar player who plays on that, it'll come to me. I'll say it in a minute. Played with Pink Floyd, Delicate Sound of Thunder that year, and Rick Fenwick. Yeah, so he plays a solo at the end, and nice stuff, because he's a great player, isn't he? But like the Clapton one, that's what we're here for, that magic, So let's check it out. What I might do as well is just show you the pedal board that I'm going to use for the Clapton gig, because I know there's people interested in that. You don't need a lot of effects when you're doing Clapton, do you? Do you know what I mean? You just need the basics, but, what I'll be doing is using the house amp, which is there. I know they usually have Fender amps there. I'll have an amp in the boot just in case I arrive and the half decent ones are not there anymore, and if I get there and there's like a gorilla amp or something like that, I will I'll grab my amp from the car. So I'll show you the pedal board. I'm playing through it at the moment, and then at the end of this I'll just rip it apart and I'll just hold it up and you can and I'll talk about it briefly. So let's get into Forever Man. Great tune, really poppy tune, isn't it? Like I really liked this when I was a kid. I thought it was just like, it really kind of cemented my interest in kind of Clapton, because you had all of this, the classic stuff from the 60s and Cream and Derek and the Dominos. And then when you heard the pop 80s stuff, and I was at, probably 12, 13 at the time, it really kind of made, it solidified my kind of like real interest in it, because there was a bit of everything there. If I wanted to listen to something catchy and poppy, it was there. If I wanted something pretty heavy going, you could listen to Cream, the blue stuff. You know the story. There's country stuff there if you want to play acoustic guitar. It's kind of unique in that kind of sense, where he has a career which spans so long and so many eras. It's very important, eras of in pop music, coming along like he did in the 66, I suppose, and then Yardbirds just before that. But I mean, it's kind of really interesting to see that he's still around today, making great music. Okay, so let's check it up. It's actually really short, this solo. You could do it on your lunch break, So he kind of starts off with it's kind of like off the record, so. And he doesn't pick it twice. It's almost that second one is barely audible. And then I love the next bit. Now his tone is actually quite thin in the way this is recorded. I did much prefer the 1986 kind of NEC one, because the sound was so good, you know. This kind of looks good. It's kind of soft focused. It's a bit 80s the way that it's shot. Kind of moves around in a, you know, I don't think it's as good a filming job and recording job, because his tone is quite thin, and I'm sure it was rocking at the time. You know, it's still great, but you know, it's definitely not the same tone that he was playing with like just a year later. So he's got this which is really nice. So I'm playing this about 80%. So, you know, so different to the recorded version, isn't it? So you've got this kind of like unison bend. And then he kind of slides off. So that's the first little chunk, if you like. And then you've got... So a couple of weeks ago, I can't even remember what tune we were playing, but it was High Up the Neck. We transcribed the solo. Well, I transcribed the solo and I threw it out at you guys. And there was a lick, and I was saying, out of all of the Clapton solos, I've never heard him play this repetitive lick. And then here it is, like just a couple of weeks later. And it's he plays the, you know, the root, because we're in D, and then he's pull off. He does that 8 times. It's kind of really cool, isn't it? And then kind of lost count there. So I did that intuitively. I wasn't really counting there, but you know that 13 bend is on the beat. That's why I've written the rhythm in there, you know. And then, and you got this. I'm gonna go back a bit. Let's go back a little bit there. Yeah, it's... That's better. You've got to take the time to listen, haven't you? Sometimes you have to check yourself there. I was kind of thinking it was one thing, but I've done so many of these things, you're almost anticipating it, thinking it's going to be one thing, but you have to just stop and listen. Da, 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 da. And then why are we doing this? We're doing it for the phrasing. Some people will be listening to this going, what, you know, what's in this for me? You know what I mean? Download the tab, practice along, just drop your pick. And if you practice these things enough, when you go to improvise, you know, some of these phrasings will hopefully spill out. The note choices, how fast you play, the trills, the bends, the hammer-ons, the pull-offs, the, you know, how you construct a solo. That's why we transcribe. Whether you're a jazzer or a rocker or whatever, it's always time well spent, isn't it? Okay, where are we next? So... That's, and then just one more lick. Learning to soar, isn't it? That's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to soar with our solos. Let's have a listen to that phrase again. So there it is, Forever Man. Get the tab, play the individual parts. You know, learn the solo all the way through if you want. Don't bother, just take the licks that you want. This is what we're about here, you know, is, you know, you might listen to this and you might listen to it as a whole and you go, I just like that lick at 7 minutes and 20 or something. I'm just having that one. You know, you could download the free tab, you know, put a highlighter pen around it and go, I'll have that one. Not bothered about the rest. That's kind of cool. You know what I mean? It's there's nothing wrong with that. So what I'll do here is I'll unplug this board here so I can show you the pedal board I'll be using for the Clapton show. They usually have like a Fender Blues Deluxe there, which I think are 40 watts, aren't they? You know, I used one on a show there a few months ago and it was totally fine. Do you know what I mean? You know, you're playing in a U2 cover band or something, you're going to need more shit. But if you're kind of like in this kind of scenario, you don't need that much stuff. So, excuse me for a second. So here we go. What have we got? Well, hey, forgot that wasn't... Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to attach that actually. I might have to unscrew the little feet on it and I might have to unscrew the feet on it and put some Velcro on it. Where does that come out of there? So that, oh yeah, that goes, so plug that back in. Okay. So what do we got here? A couple of little funky gadgets on this that you might be interested in if you like. I'll try and keep my hand on that. So I use one of these kind of little input things. You get these on Thomann, they're about 40 quid. And I plug into that and I plug out of that and go to the amp. It's just easier than trying to get in and out of your pedals. They're really this little junction box basically. But it's like probably the best 40 quid you're gonna spend. It's really useful. So it comes out of that and it goes into the wah pedal, and then you're into the tuner, and then you can see I've got a dual overdrive here. Now I've got an analog King of Tone, right? So very fancy pedal. Now I waited 4 or 5 years for this. You know, I've talked about this before, you know what I mean? They're cool, like, but you know, I think I prefer the Tube Screamer, you know what I mean, to be honest. But I could get the Tube Screamer on there, but I couldn't get a boost in on this kind of footprint of pedal board. So because it's a dual drive, you know, it still sounds fantastic. So I'll use one as a standard kind of sound, and then I'll use one as a boost, you know what I mean? So, and then I've got the Strymon Flint. Okay, standard, using reverb. You can use the tremolo to get a pretty convincing sound for Leslie sound for Badge. But I do have a Lex, so I'll probably bring the Lex with me, and then I'll decide on the day. I might put the Lex in instead of that, because if I've got a Fender amp there and it's got reverb on it, but there's no guarantee that's going to be there. You might get there and it's just like a different type of amp and there's no reverb on it, and you might go, well, it's a toss-up between, you know, using the Lex and not having any reverb, which you'll be fine with, or you could use the reverb on this, and then the harmonic tremolo can do a pretty good swirly sound, because, you know, the way they mix in the Leslie sound, it's not really right up front. It's not like a super obvious sound. It's quite subtle the way Clapton uses it, and Clapton has used tremolo pedals in the past to create the Leslie sound. He was doing that a few years ago. He just had a Boss tremolo instead of having his Leslie on the road. It's all powered by this Fender engine room, which you can't really see because I put Velcro on the top. The reason I put Velcro on the top is because then I can put a little pick holder there, right? So I'll probably get a couple of them and stick them there, and then I don't have to worry about running out of picks or losing picks or not having any on the day. Anybody got a pick kind of stuff. Now, so one extra thing, what I get off Amazon is I get these little kind of like extensions on the AC. So like, you know, what you'd have to do here is plug your, you know, your like kettle lead into here, And it's not kind of, so if you get this, it's not, this is like a 1 foot extension. And it means that it just kind of flops around, and I can just plug my extension into that, and then when I put it away, it's there. I have like 4 or 5 of these, and I pretty much have them on every kind of like board I build for different things, because it's so useful than trying to cram in your kettle lead into things. So that's it, pretty simple. A couple of overdrive stages. Tuner, need it. Wah-wah, need it. Don't necessarily need reverb, but I need something there, you know, just to balance out the bucks, if you like, you know, and maybe something to give that a bit of swirly effect for the Leslie sound. Like I said, on the day I might just put a Lex in there instead, and I'll just kind of throw that in my gig bag, so I'll make a decision on the day. But you can see there's going to be no difference in structure in it or power in it or anything like that. So pretty simple, probably not massively sexy, but very small footprint, and I can walk for miles with that. Now, there are other pedal boards that you put together for different things for one reason or another, and I might talk about one actually, and it's not always the case, you know. I have a board I put together recently for a show that I'm doing, and because it needs certain things on it, it has to be bigger, and it has to include, you know, certain things. But I might talk about that even next week. There's no point talking about it now, because it might change between now and then. So anyway, Forever Man, download the free tab for that. Patreon, blah blah blah, all that usual stuff. Thanks to everyone who's supporting me on Patreon. It's good fun, isn't it? You know what I mean? If you're over there and you're a Keep It Burning member, on a Friday I put up a video. I think I uploaded one the other day, and it went out as a public video. So some of you might have watched it thinking it was a public video, but it wasn't. It was just a Patreon video. So, but I'd say only about 20 or 30 people might have got to see it, because I changed it pretty quickly. But you know, because there's only like a small number of paying members over there, I can tell that non Patreon people have probably watched it just by the numbers on it. Anyway, by and by, keep it burning, people, and I'll see you on later in the week.